by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Salut tout le monde, bienvenue, hey everybody. How about that? That was a great win. The Canadiens showed a lot of pride tonight, obviously fantastic. 5-2 win, and we saw great stuff from Nick Suzuki. Yoel Armia all of a sudden comes out with that big game. We knew that was his big game.
His one Mario Lemieux game per
never
month.
gonna score until like 2027. Hey, that's a hat trick. It's fantastic to see Mike Hoffman goal.
Yep.
That was good. All in all, I think if you're a Caps fan, you're probably a little embarrassed by that. But that was one of the most complete games the Montreal Canadiens put together this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to consider the Caps were shit for sure. I would put this one below like the game against the Bruins a few weeks ago.
Right?
Like that was like a fantastic performance, but this was a great, like considering the situation and how bad they were the last three games. This is huge.
Yeah, I mean, almost everyone on the roster deserves to be proud of what they did there. And that night, that was fantastic. So, obviously, we're going to get to all our fantastic people in the chat. Who do we got here? We got King of the North. We got Jean Small. We got Trinka. We got Paper Dolls. We got Dina Zalou. We got all our regular fantastic people. And we're just so happy to have you with us because the key here is having a good community. That's honestly what we want. And all of you are a huge part of that. So thank you for your sustained support this year. It has been fantastic. We're going to bring in our guest in just one moment. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. It's March Mania at Sports Interaction. We got NHL, NBA, March Madness. Now that is the good stuff. Oh, March Madness.
I think it's over.
It's over. Hey, we're in April now, but we can talk about how the March Madness was fun. We had UConn, took it all home. That was great. And LSU won as well. So there is so much more going on. There's always soccer. Arsenal's about to win the league. That's very important.
Is it?
Well, for me. Yeah, okay. You can play Panada Picks, Minute Madness, exclusive games. There's live in-bet, there's prop bets, there's everything at Sports Interaction. So make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Download the app in Ontario. Use the QR code where you see, like, I think it's like here-ish. Or no, I think it might be here. Either way.
Yeah, it's on my side.
And head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Happy Pride, absolutely, Trinka. Just wanted to, we're beautiful little jersey. This is the older one. And you're seeing here, it's Fanatics. So I washed it twice, so it's falling apart. But this is the one shirt I kept from Fanatics because it's important to me. To everyone that's in a marginalized community, we're glad that you're here with us. We love all of you, full support, and we're glad that you're watching. Let's bring in Ian, our good buddy Ian, and see how he's doing.
Hey guys,
Ian.
that was fun.
Right?
Yeah.
There's some good hockey at the end of the season, I think. Genuinely, this is good for, I was telling Andrew at the end of the year, we need some of this for the Montreal Canadiens because next year is going to be different. So finishing on a high note, pretty important, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, they played an opponent that found out yesterday they were eliminated, and I think that was very apparent for all 60 minutes of that
They were
game.
at Chez Paris earlier, weren't they?
Yeah, most likely. So I mean, the parts that you'd like to see going are going. Yoel Armia, obviously the standout in this one. It's I think I mentioned all year that he's had if he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck. Like he's had a brutal season. It's nice to see him, have that sort of moment right before the season ends. Just for him to be healthy as well is just a massive benefit. Just looking forward to next year.
Absolutely. Hey, Ian, for now, we're actually going to try to we have a little bit of echo on your end. So Andrew's trying to fix that, and I'm going to go ahead and just rant. We've heard that I'm able to rant once in a while, but I will say this about what we're seeing from guys like Nick Suzuki, what we're seeing from guys like even Mike Hoffman, who I genuinely think has had a pretty darn good year, guys like Armia as well. It's good for their mental health to have these good games, these fun games. I know people are going to talk about the draft and whatnot, but you can't go through the entire season being the worst team in the league. And the Habs, do you think they'll be bottom 5 next year? Because I think they'll probably be in the mix for about half a season, and having Nick Suzuki play well, very important.
Could
you hear us, Ian? Could you hear us? Can you hear us? No,
he can't hear us. So we plugged in the headphones and now he can't hear it.
Ian can't hear us, but it is very important. And we're seeing Nick Suzuki, the key here tonight, 62 points. That is a career high. And he's been doing it with, for those that have watched The Wire, moyen teams, and they haven't been so good. So I'm excited to see what a guy like Nick Suzuki can do with a roster that isn't one of the worst teams in the league. I think having guys like Cole Caulfield take a little bit of pressure off of them, and incoming, there's so many quality prospects incoming, will be huge for Nick Suzuki. So when we talk about how far he's gone and the potential he has with this team, I think it's very important to remember where he's producing these points, and it's at the bottom of the standings. Nick Suzuki hates losing. You can tell it's wearing on him. So it's really important for him to get going. But this is just the beginning of the beginning for Nick Suzuki, in my opinion. Oh, hey, by the way, yeah, you can go Noel. Is it Noel or Noel? Because I've been massacring it one way or another all year. Let me know. Is it like Noel Gallagher or is it Joyeux Noel? Either way, you can go bid on the Pride jerseys that the Montreal Canadiens produced. Fantastic. And one of the things when I was working with them that really bothered me is that they kind of it was a secondary thing. They never talked about the artists. And now they're talking about the artists who are actually part of the LGBTQ plus community in Montreal. Very important. The Pride jerseys themselves are gorgeous. Go ahead and bid on those. And then it's going to go to a very, very important resources. Can you hear us, Ian?
I got you now.
Okay. And we can hear you
good?
too.
All right. We're back to live. So, Ian, UL Armia, how many goals next year?
I mean, if he plays all 82, you got to imagine one every 12 games he has a multi-goal game. So I mean that I don't know what the math is on that, but someone can do that in the chat.
Well, here, let me defend UL Armia a little bit, because
Please.
I think, like, first of all, watching him tonight after the hat trick, he was just so happy. I feel like you gotta be a little bit happier. I know everybody kind of hates the guy, and I understand it. He's really inconsistent.
I hate what Marc Bergevin did to the guy. That's what I hate.
Yeah, the contract is what's really the problem, right? And you look
Marc Bergevin short-sighted?
No. Don't try to preempt Noel, okay? And he says Noel like Gallagher, so Noel.
Oh, okay.
All right, but Armia, if you look at his Habs career and you actually look at like his goals per 82, it's basically like 16 goals a year.
Third line, that's healthy.
It's not bad. It's not bad. His production's not bad. It's just that he's very, very frustrating, because everybody who watches the guy can see that the talent is there and they think that he's not trying. But I think the problem isn't that he's not trying. I think he lacks like the processing speed of what makes players,
The computer.
get to like 30 goals, right? You look at him take shots, he has a devastating accurate
That second
shot.
goal was the thing that you see from him a lot.
Exactly, but most times
yeah,
he double pumps on the shot, right? Like it just doesn't have the speed of release. He doesn't have the speed of decision making to make him that next level player. And now obviously he's being paid like a third liner. He's really more of a
that was Lehkonen money
guy.
too. That's why I'm also bitter. That was Lehkonen money.
Yeah.
King of the North says that he loves that Noel developed a chat gimmick. And I will say there was a bunch of comments early in the stream asking if Marc was sitting on a milk crate. My chair is really high, but also Marc's 5'3". He's been hiding this fact his entire life. But,
And also, I am sitting on a milk crate. Like, you know what's funny? I was talking to Andrew at one point. We were doing some tech stuff, and I had to set up. And I said, I'm sitting on a milk crate, but I'm like, and he's like, oh, those old school ones? I'm like, yeah, but I actually had a wooden one with like the glass bottles in it. And he meant the plastic milk crates. So no, I had like a milk crate. Like you could build a foundation of a house on that. But okay, to go back to what we were talking about. First of all, shout out to everyone in the chat. We haven't really been hanging out with them too much yet. Alyssa's, I believe, still in Taiwan. So ni hao, wo shi bu hao, wo shi hen hao. I haven't really, I haven't slept very well either. So I'll be honest. NZG is a war zone right now. There's no power. That's why I'm Shea Andrew. But what do you tell me about Nick Suzuki? I want to hear how good he's been and how good he could be, Ian, with a team that's not in the bottom five. With all due respect to Raphaël Harvey-Pinard, with legitimate first liners. Like Nick Suzuki has been playing with the Mike Hoffmans, and again, he's been okay, but I'm talking about real first liners. Where's the ceiling for Nick Suzuki?
Yeah, and on top of, having legitimate first-line talent with him, just considering any kind of consistent line mates, I think would go a long way in benefiting, his overall production. I mean, he sets a career high. I think he sets a career high in points today. Ultimately, I think he can end up being a point per game kind of guy. But it doesn't, I think that getting Caulfield back long term, finding out whoever's going to play on the left wing on that line is going to go a long way. But I do think that the sky's sort of the limit for him still. Also, you have to consider that like most nights almost every night, actually, he's matched up against the other team's top
He's getting
talent.
Pacioretti'd. You know,
Right.
like there's one guy to cover.
Right. And, that's a solution that the Canadians fix with more depth, with having an actual second line of, because
Of players.
right. Even when they had, towards the beginning of the season, when they had all their health, without that second line, without having a Kirby Doc lining up down the middle on the second line, it was impossible to get Suzuki away from those kind of matchups. So hopefully that's something that they can adjust moving forward, especially with a certain, winger hoping to come and play in Montreal next year, or as soon as possible, as soon as his general manager will let him free.
Yeah, and obviously we're talking about AJ Greer is the guy that exactly. So is do you really think, let's say we talk about Dubois, we have to address it. A lot of people are worried. They're saying, "Oh, you're too much center depth. You're getting too much quality there."
Does that exist?
What are you? That's my question. Like, when's the last time? At the beginning of the year, we even said, "Oh, the Habs have center depth," and it just evaporated like a fart in the wind. So there's no issue. I know you can play wing, but there's no issue bringing another talented center in Montreal, right?
No, and that's never a problem for, I don't know, the Olympic teams. Like when Canada's at the Olympics, do you think they give a crap about how many centers they have? Like they sometimes they roll out there with 8 centers, it's
right?
just, that's the way it is. I think it's a good problem to have, which Montreal has not had a lot of over the last few years, mostly just bad problems. That would be, especially considering a lot of them are right-handed, which could go a long way. That's sort of it's not a huge market efficiency at the moment.
No.
But I don't think that that's a legitimate problem to have as far as roster construction. Just like how people are getting worked up on defense. Well, we don't really have a ton of right-handed defensemen. Well, Montreal's not in the market for that right now. They're in the market for good defensemen. Why don't we get a bunch of good players here first and then figure that out?
And then worry about it instead of doing like Babcock back in the day. Remember with Subban at the Olympics? Like, he might be my third best defenseman, but we have too many guys playing on that side.
Yeah, we got to play Dan Hamhuis.
You have to play Dan Hamhuis. It's very, very important.
Who's a good player, just maybe not Team Canada quality.
Hey, man, at one point, Pat Falloon got invited to Team Canada. So that's like, you want to talk about, this is, I think, the first Olympic, it was Nagano. And Canada galaxy brained the whole thing and finished 8th or something. They're like, no, we have to have a checking line. Like, no, you don't. No, you absolutely do not.
Who was the face-off specialist they brought to Nagano?
Not like it's
maybe
that Peter Zezel-ish type like player there.
Nothing's funnier to me than them bringing Kunitz just because he would ride shotgun with Crosby. That was the funniest.
Like +1.
He did nothing.
It didn't work at all.
Well, Crosby didn't do. You know what? I'll say this. Right before Crosby scored, I was in the middle. I had a bunch of friends over. I'm like, this guy's had a shit tournament. Crosby's been terrible. Get him out of here.
He hadn't though. He led the entire tournament in scoring chances by like 15.
Yeah, but he had like 1 point at that point there. You know what I mean?
He hadn't scored a lot, but he was incredible.
Anyways, he went up to score literally as I am like point final, put an end to it. And Crosby golden goal. So maybe maybe you don't listen. Maybe you don't listen to me. And one thing I always hated about Kunitz, if Crosby gets a +1, why doesn't Marie-Philippe Poulin get a +1 for Sophie Betté, who was actually better than Kunitz? She led the CWHL in scoring 3 years in a row. So
there you go.
There's grievances from old CWHL coverage. That's what we're here for on the stream. So if you love it, make sure to like the stream and subscribe.
Rob Zaminer, that's the guy they took to Nagano.
Rob Zaminer, that's
Thank
exactly
you,
it. Thank you. Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you,
I thought Peter Zezel for some reason, but yes, Rob freaking Zaminer. Okay.
Yeah. And I just want to take a second here. Ben Becker in the chat. If you're actually 8 years old, this is probably not a show that you should be on. If you actually do need help, though, you can reach out to me on Twitter. If you're a troll, though, and you're going to start making trans jokes, you'll be banned so fast, and you will never be welcome back.
But there's resources. So there are resources, and if you want, you can hang around and just send us a little message there. All right, bud? We got you there, Ben. Okay, so moving on. King of the North wants to talk about who's the best defenseman this year.
Matheson.
I was going to say Chris Weidman, but sure, you can talk about Mike Matheson.
I mean, what did we say during the game? He's a reason to watch these games. He's a human highlight reel. He's doing things that I think, like, I don't want to say that he's better than Prime Petrie because it really diminishes how great Petrie was.
Petrie's defensive acumen was way better.
Yes.
Than like we saw like tonight. Remember when Matheson made that bad read and he went right? Petrie did that very rarely, except for towards the end.
Yeah. So I don't want to shortchange Petrie, but man, this guy is the most dynamic defenseman they've had offensively since Subban.
Mm-hmm.
and probably a better skater than Subban, which is saying a lot. 'cause,
Laterally,
prime Subban was an incredible skater, great edge work.
hilarious to watch too.
Yeah, I mean, when he would try to do too much and fall on his bum.
Yeah.
No, it's just Subban's skating style. Do you remember when someone made fun of him on Twitter and he's like, "Is that really how I look?" It's like, yeah, man, that's exactly how you look. Yeah.
Well, it's like, do you remember when Brandon Prust made fun of Alex Galchenyuk and he nailed it completely?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's doing that.
We're making very dated references for a lot of people who probably don't even remember those teams.
Yeah. Do you remember when Odie made fun of Cleghorn? You know, his brother. That was good times. But Mike Matheson, man, how important is he for this franchise moving forward? Because I think he makes Nick Suzuki better. It's not just making his defensemen better. He makes the entire team better, and he's a reason, like Andrew said, to go to the games, to watch the games. That's still important.
Yeah, I think a lot of the scoring troubles, I think, in the past are due to, yes, lack of talent up front, but also a legitimate, inefficient way of getting the puck to those attackers, right? Like, you know, the days of you know, Ben Sherratt, those kinds of guys that are making their way out of this roster, right? Like, I mean, I say that, and this game, Joel Edmondson just took a slap shot off the boards that bounced perfectly to Nick Suzuki.
I think
at
what you
center
mean.
ice.
I think what you mean, Ian, is it was the greatest off the glass dump out in the history of hockey.
We were just talking about his decision making isn't always great. It's actually terrible. And then he banked because he had just whiffed, and then he banks one off for a breakaway.
Yeah, but I mean, Matheson is that, you know, he's part of that current wave of NHL defensemen, right? Like, I think tonight he rarely actually played like a stay-at-home style. Like he flies up the ice. He's more of a rover than anything, which is
he's been their
fun
best
to
forward
watch.
in March,
Yeah.
right?
Joel Edmondson or Mike Matheson?
No.
I was like, are we talking about Joel Edmondson still?
Yeah, no, definitely. And a note on Jeff Petrie, a friend of mine mentioned to me yesterday, Jeff Petrie is now minus 120 for his career, which I don't think plus minus matters at all, but that's kind of funny. Like, it's a legitimately funny number considering, you know, most of those are from Edmonton, and that was a very long time ago.
Absolutely. Okay, Mike Matheson, in terms of his transition, which defensemen are going to benefit more of it? Is it Jordan Harris? Is it Caden Gooley? I think a guy like, in my mind, I like Gooley. I think Harris can become much better in transition.
Yeah, I think it's Harris is going to be the biggest, just based on skating, right?
Yeah.
You know, just learning through osmosis what Mike Matheson is able to do.
You know, Kay right now is upset that we didn't go with.
Well, I mean, Caden Gooley's going to learn from him as well. I think Caden Gooley's offensive game is already better than Jordan Harris. Though. Like, he has good instincts. He took a huge step in the last year, junior. I mean, his shot is, I think, better than Jordan Harris.
And he was a power play QB with the Oil Kings. He had never done that before, and it just blew up. Like, he was instantly good at it. Yeah.
So I think Caden Gooley, he will learn from Matheson for sure. I think it'll be about like when to take risks and when to not. But Harris, I think, is the guy who can make the biggest change in transition. Because like right now he's a good transition guy. Yeah. But I think he could be a great transition player.
I don't know if Matheson picks his spots that much. I think he just goes. He just goes.
Yeah.
Full send.
I think that's also like the scenario that he's playing in, right? Like, they don't really care if they lose.
The options are few and far between.
Yeah.
As well, if you notice with Matheson, he'll look, he's like, no option, no outlet. Okay, I'm taking it. I'm taking it myself. We're going to go.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about, you know, situationally, just not only in each game, but just the situation these Montreal Canadiens find themselves in. Like, they're playing loose because there's not really a whole lot at stake. That's going to change when it's, you know, game 76 in a season where they might be a bubble playoff team, which might happen in a year or two. Like, does he take those same risks, and is he as effective because of his decision to take those risks or not? It'll be an interesting way to see how he, you know, sort of not tones that back, because I think Matheson is really effective when he's just fully authentically who he is. But like, just seeing how players make better decisions because they have to make better decisions. Right now, they're kind of learning on the fly, which is, he's super fun to watch. Like, regardless of, you know, a lot of times being a fan nowadays gets wrapped up in charts and numbers and stuff. And his numbers look pretty good on most nights, but just visually, like, you know, guy do spin, it's pretty fun. Like, I enjoy watching that sort of thing. Yeah. Like, I like seeing cool dudes do cool stuff. Like, I think that's why a lot of us got into this sport, is because, whoa, look at all these guys doing fun things. He's super fun.
It's getting people's asses off the seats, and there's so much value there. It's the same reason at the beginning of the season people talked about Arbor Jacki. I'm like, listen, you can't discount the entertainment value of Arbor Jacki. He's going to make the season fun. Yeah. Now, they actually kind of ran him a little ragged there, and I think there's a lesson to be learned there with he can't be getting rid of 10 years of Montreal Canadiens insecurities in one season, because there's always been that size insecurity. Let's be perfectly honest. Since the Sens beat them up in the playoffs, it's been, and even before that.
Well, I mean, frankly, that's like, it's in the fan base, but I feel like that's also driven by the media.
Oh,
there's a certain section of
1,000%.
media that are Anglophones that I won't mention that I think would rather be cheering for the Bruins.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
And the whole
also the Bruins are good, but yeah,
but I mean, like even when the Canadiens
Bruins
and Bruins were both good, like the Canadiens would beat the Bruins in the playoffs, and these guys would be like, they gotta get bigger.
No matter what, gotta get bigger. Gotta get huge.
You can't beat the Bruins with David Desharnais. And it's like they just did beat.
And then David
Desharnais.
They routinely did it.
Yeah, he skated around like Chera, and Chera's like, "Whoa, what the hell was that?" Like fee fi fo fum. Where did you go? And yeah, I know, absolutely. But entertainment value is key, as you say. Going down the stretch here, there's also people in auditions. So where do we see? Let's talk about Raphaël Harvey-Pinard next year. Is he top 6, or does he have to start all over again?
Man, it's really challenging because I watch him play, and I can't help but think that he plays like a top 6 forward.
He's playing like Suzuki a bit.
He's
smart.
His play in front of the net is so fun to watch because he is so small, but it just doesn't seem to matter the slightest bit. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see what his next contract is going to look like. I tweeted the day before he changed agents. I wonder if anyone realizes he's on a contract year. And then the next day he joins Kent Hughes' old agency. So it's like, okay, I think they very much realize that he's on a contract year.
I gotta wonder if he's like, hey, Kent, you know any good agents that I can hire?
Or no, hey Vincent, like, can I get your brother's number? It's Vincent Le Cavalier's brother who's his representative.
Awesome. It's just like,
there's no nepotism in hockey.
There's none. Well, and there's absolutely no, gamesmanship there from the Hughes camp to be like, oh yes, go with my old agency. We'll negotiate a fair contract.
I feel like
don't worry.
I feel like he's been pretty open about how he's gaming the system. Like he said NCAA, he's like, no, I'll never have it. He's like, yeah, Jordan Harris will sign. This is like before, and people were like, what the hell?
Right after Marc Bergevin was like, yeah, he wants to go to the Bruins or Rangers. What can we do?
Yeah, exactly. So no, I love that aspect. Okay, but I kind of feel like he actually has to fight all over again in training camp to remind them, because like the team's getting better. He only got that opportunity because of injuries. He would still be in the AHL if not for injuries. I think he has to prove it again. He shouldn't have to, but I think he has to.
I think he has to prove that it's not a fluke, right? Like if he can score even like 1 goal in preseason, he's going to get a really good chance to stick in the top 6. What I would like to see, even if he has a rough start in preseason, or at least try it in preseason, stick him with Suzuki and Caulfield. I know it's small. I know it's a small line, but then you've got Kirby Dach and Josh Anderson in there as well to like pound guys. As Olivier Bouchard, who is one of our favorite people we used to work with at EOTP, used to say, big bodies banging down low. That's what the old school guys love. But
just gotta go pound them boys in the corner.
Yeah, like Raphael Harvey-Pinard has possession driving ability. He's got underrated passing ability. He can score goals from areas where not many people can.
And he can pull off
in front of the net.
Elite plays too.
He can pull off elite plays. Stick him with Caulfield and Suzuki, who already have so much offensive chemistry. He does the mucking in front of the net for them. He's also a voracious forechecker, just like they are. Like, I don't know, man. I think it could work. I want to see it.
Before the season started, I was talking. I forget who I was doing a live thing. And I'm like, who are they going to play with? And he was suggesting Gallagher. So this kind of follows that line. But how about this? Gallagher's back.
He is back.
So why, Ian? Maybe Brendan Gallagher gets on the top line?
Maybe. I think too, like we're forgetting, and I don't think Slafkovsky is going to automatically jump in and be a first line player, but like we have to find a spot for him, right? Like he's probably going to sit somewhere in that middle 6. I can't see him being a fourth liner next year. Like it's not even, when we say that Harvey-Pinard's probably going to have to earn it, it's not even just a slight at him. It's just a numbers game, right? Like there's only so many spots. It's what, even if a guy like Jesse Ullinen had a really great, tryout with the Canadiens right now.
And he's doing good.
He's playing pretty well. He keeps finding himself in dangerous spots, but like he might just be a victim of the numbers game. Like again, it's a good problem to have. It's the same thing that I look at on defense with this team. We just saw Lane Hudson's team lose in the Final Four. And folks are kind of wondering if he should come over. I kind of wonder if they leave him in college for another year, mostly because, he needs to bulk up 2 or 2, whatever. And also just to clear up things on their own blue line. There's too many bodies there now, and there's too many bodies on their way up. They need to figure out who's going to be here long term. And that's what, when people say, oh, these games don't matter, like they do matter in the sense that like they're giving them a sample size to work with.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I'm just worried, like you, it's the circumstances upon which their opportunities came that kind of worried me, right? Because that won't be there in the long. Like I was just telling Andrew, Alex Belzil in my mind is the perfect number 13, right? Versatile, play up and down the line, can go to Laval, and also it'd be nice for him to make $1 million instead of like 60,000 a year, which is what he's, or even less.
I mean, he's earned it at this point.
Oh my God,
he's gonna have to earn it again. But he should be like penciled in, not penciled in as the 13th forward to fourth line center next season. I think my prediction for next season is, because we talked about Pierre-Luc Dubois. I think personally that it's going to happen.
Oh yeah, I say wait. If he really wants to play, prove it to me.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have to give up much for him. That's the thing, because they have so much.
Maybe
leverage,
Florida's
right?
first might go, but we'll see.
But I think the one thing that I think is pretty solid next year, if Pierre-Luc Dubois ends up in Montreal, is the third line. I think is going to be Doc, Anderson, Slavkovsky.
That would be a really good third line.
Number one, that's a huge third line.
Yeah, Slavkovsky with Doc. Oh my God, that's who Slavkovsky needs, is Doc.
He needs somebody who has that cerebral presence.
Creates time and space for him on the rush.
And like playing off Anderson, I think as well will help, because he played a bit with Anderson at the beginning of the year. But Slavkovsky, Anderson,
in the before times,
like Anderson at the beginning of the year was basically Anderson of last year. Anderson in the second half of this year was a completely different friggin' player.
He turns left.
Yeah. So having Doc insulate the defensive side, Slav and Anderson kind of like pushing the envelope offensively. Man,
the funny thing is, Trinka's been on a roll there, and so is Trizak, and I'm not going to confuse both of you to this. I will, but the giraffe line, now that's pretty fun. But and as Kay says, Doc on the third line, people would riot, but
somebody's got to play the third line. It doesn't matter what you label the lines, right? You're going to have Suzuki.
There is no such thing anymore. It's like middle six. It's
for good teams, right? You have your top line, and then good teams should have 3 scoring lines and a fourth line that can bang and score.
Yeah.
Right. So like, Doc's only going to be on the third line if Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Look,
still on
and
the club,
AD nailed it. Also pulled off the Doc Anderson Slav combo.
Jeez, I didn't even see that. That's awesome.
I'm going to call you on plagiarism on that one there.
PLD would complement Suzuki Caulfield the best. I mean, I don't think they're going to acquire PLD and put him on the wing. I think having the ability to run.
Oh, you want him as your second or first line center?
Yeah, three like 80th percentile centers down the middle. Like that's the difference between being a good team and a contending team.
Ian, what if I suggest that Pierre-Luc Dubois should play first line center while Nick Suzuki plays on the wing? Is that the dumbest suggestion you're going to hear tonight?
Yeah, because Suzuki's better defensively.
Yeah, I mean,
but his underlines are rough, man. They've been rough for 2 years now. Like, he's been playing with
doesn't matter.
The La Poubelle, let's be honest. But
I don't know. I don't know that. Like, I know that a lot of people get really upset when that question is posed, right? Because he's
like defensive, like weirdly defensive about it.
Yeah, he's the captain. He is our number 1 center at the moment. Like they would see that as a demotion. Personally, I think Nick Suzuki's a team guy. He would welcome that sort of, opportunity to play with really skilled hockey players, really focus on his offensive game. We talk about his defensive strengths, and we talk about, him, playing against tough matchups every night. Perhaps if he moves to the wing, those defensive responsibilities kind of go away a little bit, and we see a player who can really, blow up score sheets. Like tonight was his 19th multi-point game of the season. Like,
really?
Perhaps we're seeing a whole lot more of those.
I think my thing with Suzuki is if he's going to the wing, the center has to be significantly better at playing.
Kirby Doc is your center.
No, not even that. I mean, like Kirby Doc, I like Kirby Doc a lot. I don't think he has a higher ceiling than Suzuki. I think a lot of people do. I think that's based on size and being the new hotness.
He's closer to the ceiling. Yeah,
closer to the ceiling. He can touch it easier. But like, if I'm moving Nick Suzuki to the wing, it has to be for a center that is significantly better than Nick Suzuki. And I like Pierre-Luc Dubois as like the player. Like, he's a good player.
Defensively, he's not even close.
Defensively, he's not as good as Suzuki. Doc, I think, is better defensively than he gets credit for, but obviously he's not playing the minutes that Nick Suzuki is playing. I think Suzuki has the greatest, like, the feats Like he has accomplished the most. Of
Oh,
both
he's
players.
got the nicest feet.
Yeah, when he gets those dogs out, man. Did you watch the All-Star game in Florida?
He used to be an
No,
NFL
no.
coach. Yeah.
We're not going to turn this into a feet stream. Adam Wilde is not on the show. But if you're moving,
I don't know what that means, and I'm a little terrified now.
Oh, last year for the draft, Adam like put his feet up on the stream, like not wearing socks, and people were going crazy. They did like a draft day stream.
Were they only fansing it, like giving him bet, like
They were like telling him to open an OnlyFans. It was unhinged. And anyway, Robert hates Adam for this.
I'm with Robert. I don't know, like if
Robert.
we're picking sides.
Robert had to like manage the Discord, which was like for like 10 days was people being like feet.
So like the New York Giants head coach or New York Jets head coach, he's big into feet. Yeah, okay.
To my point,
Feet.
if you're moving Nick Suzuki off to the wing, it better be for Connor Bedard or Adam Fantilli.
And I agree with that. The only reason I did like it was that the few times where Kirby Dach was placed on the line and he started taking the face-offs, it actually liberated, like you said, Ian. He was just focused on driving the play, and actually he had really high points per 60 when Dach, the few games. So we're talking about a tiny sample size, but as we see in the chat right now, they did not like my suggestion. No, I don't think it was a very popular suggestion.
No.
In this economy?
No, and when all those pieces are here, if Dubois is here, whoever the Canadians draft this year, whether that's one of the first two picks or someone 5, 6, 7, or 8, I think that it's also important to think about the fact that they finally have a head coach in place who's probably going to play them in the right places. Like if this was Ducharme or Therrien or even Julian, really, like it'd be kind of tough to believe that they were going to put a roster out there that made sense every night.
Yeah.
So I mean, next year I think there's going to be some growing pains in figuring out like where all these guys are going to play. As much as we say the preseason is too long, it's not that long because they don't play all those games. Like they have to play 2 or 3 games as an ECHL team before they can actually, start playing the regular players. So it's going to be a work in progress next year.
It's the preseason isn't long for like figuring out the team structure. It's long to watch.
It sucks. It sucks.
It's
It's
just
so
awful.
bad.
It's so bad.
Ugh.
I went every year. I'm like, oh yeah, first preseason game. Can't wait to watch this. And by the end of the first period, I'm like, how many more games of this?
I'm not gonna lie. There was the red and white game for the Habs, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not. That's it for me. That was like my pushing it.
I haven't watched one of those in a few years.
It was.
It's been a while.
I was going because I was sitting with Owen Beck's parents, and I just wanted to see the reaction for his story. That's the only reason. The agent was like, "Come watch the game," but that said, "Hey." I feel like for some reason the chat thinks I don't like Jake Evans. I was the original Jake Evans booster. Oh, there goes the tick. I was the original. Oh, I got some nice hair going on there. In Laval, like he was completely being ignored. And I remember writing an article for the Athletic, and Arpin came and he's like, "Man, you're pushing way too much. This guy is not NHL like worthy."
Oh, throwing Arpin under the bus.
No, hey, Arpin like turned me into a much better writer because I was trash, but he missed that one because he took out the line at the end. I said, Jake Evans wants to make the NHL, and it'd be wise to not wise to bet against him. Same thing with Brazil, and you took out both those lines. 7 years later, I would have looked so smart. Arpin, I would have looked so smart. But where does Jake Evans fit in all of this? Because I was saying when he came back, it's harsh, but Jake Evans' place on this roster is not guaranteed. He's one of those guys that could fall out of the lineup. He was playing his best hockey before he got injured. He picked up right where he left off, in my opinion. Him and Gallagher both need to reestablish their spot in the lineup.
I really like Jake Evans. It's hard.
Not like me. I hate Jake Evans.
I mean, I find he's one of those guys where I would find it very hard to like move him out of the lineup because I think also he has the versatility to play wing, right? Like,
and he's a leader on this team because remember when stuff was going terribly wrong, he was the one that was actually like, let's be honest, Nick Suzuki at about game 55 was having a hard time, finding motivation. Jake Evans went out there just fighting guys.
Yeah,
we don't want to see that with concussion, but I still think Jake Evans has to prove that he can bring value to this team, even though we know he can.
Now let's talk about Christian Dvorak because he's even lower on the depth chart. Let's be honest.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I had forgotten that Christian Dvorak was on the team until right then.
He's
he's
done for the year. Yeah, I mean, okay, that phrase has been thrown around a lot recently. They're saying like done for the year. There's 5 games left. Like I understand that's the point they're trying to get across, but it makes it sound so much more dire.
No, they mean the calendar year. Yeah, it's until December 31st. That's what they mean now. The Habs.
But Dvorak. Like I don't know. I feel like they have to try to move him because it hasn't worked here, and it's he was put in a tough situation, as were a lot of players that Marc Bergevin called in here to fix issues that he had
It was
created.
a rough summer.
It was a bad summer. I would pick Evans over him. You have to start looking ahead. Like, where does Owen Beck make this lineup in the next 2 years or so?
Or next year.
Yeah.
Or next
All the
year.
center depth
Could be
has
here.
probably made Owen Beck's junior career a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reason Mississauga traded him was that they were assuming that was it for him in junior.
Yeah.
Now, let's be honest, we might have overhyped Owen Beck.
A touch.
Maybe, but I mean, he
He had a rough year. It was a busy ass
well,
year.
he had a rough year after the trade.
Mhm.
Like his year
Peterborough was a mess, though.
Peterborough was a huge mess. Like in Mississauga, he was having a huge year.
Mhm.
It was after the trade. That
But just think of how busy it is. So with the Habs, you get drafted, and then you get your entry level contract, your great dev camp. You show up Mississauga, blockbuster trade, Team Canada last minute. Now you're back into the playoffs with another team, and you make your NHL debut.
Yeah, how many coaches has he played for this season?
Like 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
does Owen Beck he goes back to junior? I think now, at this point.
Yeah. I mean,
it seems pretty clear.
yeah, because is he still of an age where like it's junior
Yeah,
or
there's no AHL. Yeah,
right? So
which is such a dumb rule.
It is, but I kind of understand it. Like I'd rather him play top 6 minutes there than play middle 6 or bottom 6 on the Laval Rocket, right? Like it's probably better for the player, but
Go out there and go get 80 points.
Right,
Because that's
right.
2 years in a row now that Beck kind of peters out towards the end of the season. So it'd be nice then to have like a
But he actually finished stronger. It was like
he actually had 10 points in the last 11 games, but you're right. Yeah. It's just his point per game pace just collapsed.
Yeah. Peterborough. I've heard a lot of bad things about Peterborough and the way that they play the game. Basically, it's like
Me too.
the muckers and grinders are like elevated, and their skill guys are just held.
Oh, I just had my Kim, my high school. Yeah, she came from there. I hate Peterborough.
Just the city of Peterborough, garbage.
Yeah.
I will say there was a question here. Who was it there? AD asks if the Habs don't trade for PLD, they kind of have to keep Dvorak for next season. No, I mean it kind of depends, right? Because I'm looking at the depth chart right now, right? You're looking at Suzuki, Doc. I would put Jake Evans
Question
above.
mark Evans. Yeah,
Jake
will
Evans
be
is
your
above Christian Dvorak for me.
As soon as he gets a bit more minutes, he starts producing. He actually wasn't great on the fourth line center, in my opinion.
He's great defensively. He
yeah,
just
but
doesn't
there's
produce much.
he can't produce there, and that's not his fault.
No,
Like he's not. Yeah.
but then like honestly, is Christian Dvorak better than Alex Belzile? I'm gonna ask the question. I'm sorry.
No, not Alex Bazil had the 4th highest points per 60 in the NHL this year.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but he's not probably gonna be
Shut up!
honest.
Shut up about that. There will be no Alex Bazil slander on this chat.
on a
But
shooting
you're right.
percentage of like 15%.
I shut up. Okay? I forgot about Alex Belzil. Yeah, no, we don't need Christian Dvorak.
I mean, you want to have some depth.
No. As who brought it up in the chat?
you could find depth. You can find a cheap guy on July 1st if you really wanted to, and I think
Yeah, Alex
Belzil's a
Belzil will
perfect-
be your cheap guy
Right,
when he
but
signs his new contract.
I think Belzil's a perfect 13 just because, it sort of reminds me of like, this is a guy to remember, but when Joel Ward was here on a PTO,
Yeah.
like the goal was basically like, if you are worse than Joel Ward, you are not playing for the Canadiens this year.
It's
He-
the
it
beating
was like-
stick there. It's
Yeah,
like-
he's the Mendoza line, right? Like,
He's the
like
Mendoza line,
you
yeah.
need to, if you're not better than Joel Ward, you're not playing for the
It's,
Canadiens.
in track and field, you call it the beating. Yeah, the stick, like the person
Right.
that you have to. Yeah.
We used to call that the Blunden line. Remember?
The Blunden line,
Blunden
Mike
line.
Blunden line.
Yes.
Oh man, that was sad times. If Mike Blunden was your Blunden line,
Yeah.
come on, Alex Bez at UFAK. There's a really good point got brought up in the chat. Dvorak in Bergevin, short-sighted? No. Gave him a non-trade or no move, either NMC, actually no trade
It's a
contract.
modified no
NTC?
trade clause that kicks in at.
So he
July
probably has
1st.
like 6 teams that he can name, so it'll actually become difficult because you have to protect an asset like Christian Dvorak. You got to give him all the guarantees.
Well,
Those
that's actually
Oilers
something
don't
Bergevin didn't do because they just traded for him. So they acquired a player who would then be harder to use, which is even funnier to consider.
Fair enough. So does that mean you give him a little more leash?
Dvorak.
Yeah.
You trade him in the draft.
You're
Try.
just like just get
At this
Yeah.
point, it's 2 years, and I know it's been 2 tough years for the whole team, but like
Mhm.
in 2 years, there's been like a 2-week stretch where. 2-week stretch where Christian Dvorak has been good. It was at the end of the season last year, and even at that time, like his offense picked up. Like he can sit in front of the net and tip shots. He's a good net front guy. But is he
soaking a piece of wood with a vice grip on it there.
But like, in order to produce at the level that he would need to justify that contract, he's probably got to be the first wave power play guy, and he's not better than Raphael Harvey-Pinard in that position, in like as the bumper or net front guy. So where does he fit? Right, and his defensive numbers are atrocious, like among the top 5 worst in the league.
Which is surprising because he actually had really good defensive numbers.
He had like
Arizona.
mediocre. At
well,
best.
but on Arizona, on the I don't know where they were at that point, but for the Coyotes,
I mean, they were better than they are now, but they were like 30th percentile in the league.
Hold on, it's no. If it's a competition of who has the less broken leg, then Dvorak is the clear winner.
Oh no. I mean, it's I think most of this fan base wanted Dvorak when that was unfolding. They were like, oh, it's a center. Montreal can go get him. But in retrospect, like, Christian Fischer is right there. Like, he would have been a guy that would have made a whole lot more sense coming out of Arizona. I feel like every time I'm on here, we end up talking about Marc Bergevin, which is just a bummer. It just, I kind of, it'll take years to watch.
Alzner's contract's about to not be on the cap anymore. Do you know who signed Alzner's contract? Gave him a helicopter ride and everything. They gave him a helicopter ride. That's how, like, I talked to Alzner and he's like, man, no one came close to offering me half of what the Habs did. And it's like, and the Habs thought that they were fighting against someone. There was no one else. Like, the Habs were fighting against, like, like a cat in the mirror.
Dennis H reminds us that it's gonna be more crowded up the middle when the Habs pick top 2.
Oh,
it's gonna happen.
Jeff Gorton has good lottery luck. He just
really
wins.
does.
All he does is win.
Unfortunately for his Rangers team, they just didn't develop any of those picks.
Yeah,
development's a big part of it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, going down, we and we're gonna get into. I'd like to talk about get a segment to talk about pride and all that, but
before we do,
like
the stream, guys.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough people in here. We should get more likes than this. Come on, help us grow.
If you don't like the stream, he's sending me back to NDG in the cold. That's basically what's gonna happen here. Right, so good old NDG was free. Yesterday I thought, I'm like, you know what? This is not. I have a whole kit for NDG. I have like speakers and iPhones just for music, so I can like. I have beers that have been in the fridge for 4 months that I went and I drank. I ran out. I bought 500 tea candles living in NDG. I ran out this year. 500. Yeah,
it goes quick.
So if you don't like the chat, I have to go back to NDG, and I'm gonna go have to sleep in Slovaki George's kitchen. So.
Yeah, Kay mentions that Christian Fischer once got his ass handed to him by Nate McKinnon. That's what I know about him. Is he the guy that Nate McKinnon threw the helmet at?
I think that's right.
It's like
just winces his
Hey, would remember that. That's awesome.
That was the most legendary, stupid shit.
And he whizzed that thing.
Like, we need to talk more. I know it's not a Colorado Avalanche podcast, but we need to talk more about what a piss baby Nathan McKinnon is.
Oh, I love it.
I love him for it.
Yeah, I love him
but
for
like,
it.
you remember last year he slashed a ref?
Oh yeah. Did you get
suspended?
Yeah.
No, he didn't, because
I don't even think he got a penalty.
No, they reviewed it and they were like, it was accidental. But like the ref dropped the puck in a way, or I guess it was a linesman, not a ref, so it was official. But they dropped the puck in a way that it like didn't go the right way, and it was a bad face-off, and they had to redo it. And I think they dropped it like the wrong way a second time, and McKinnon went off and freaking slashed the official.
You're gonna make Kay leave. That's not good.
It's so clearly on purpose. If you watch the it's so clearly on purpose. But I still love him because, you know, a piss baby who's that talented, who wins the Stanley Cup, you gotta.
We in this house we respect talented piss babies. Okay, that's
except for Brad Marchand.
I love Brad Marchand. I absolutely love him. Now I will say this: when I was watching, I lived in Ottawa, so Gatineau was right there, and Gatineau was playing Halifax in the playoffs. So they had Jonathan Frick, Jonathan Drouin, and Nathan McKinnon was a line. McKinnon and Drouin would come back to the bench and eviscerate Duchamp every single shift. Like they'd turn around and just yell at him. They seemed like two of the most, and I'm not saying that's how they are now, but they were pretty darn entitled as young players. Like they would play a full 2-minute power play, and he'd pull them off the shift after, and they're like, "Why didn't you leave me on the ice?" Like they were Kovaleving him pretty hard. So McKinnon has a bit of a history there.
I don't think I've seen Durin yell once since he got here. Like I don't think he's ever raised his voice a single time. So that is
no.
That's
he went from like a loud kid to one of the nicest. Like he's actually seriously my favorite guy in the NHL just as a person. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did we want to talk? Obviously, one thing that was really important tonight, it was the Pride Night in Montreal. So one of the things that I do have some insight on is how these things are put together. And in previous years, it was quick, it was hasty, it was more check it off. Nowadays, they're talking to the artists, they're getting people involved, they're doing important grassroots raising money for grassroots operations. And I'd like to say, obviously, Gurianov, Andrew has a take on that, but for the most part, and I know this is really hard to hear, especially if you're in the community, especially if you're marginalized, it's unfortunate, and it's no one's fault how we're focusing on the bads, but there has been a lot of good that has come out of this. I know for a fact some of my colleagues, how important it is to them. Yesterday, I was talking to Kat Toffoli, just, talking about the thing in Alberta, how important it was, and she was saying the teammates love it. So what's your view in all this? It's been a pretty rough year for getting through all this, Ian. What's your take on how Montreal did it?
Yeah. As someone who's not from that community, I won't speak to like the the efficacy of the messaging in this sense. But I'm an American. I live in the United States. It's a rough time for folks who are represented by that community. I don't think I've mentioned this before. I have a twin brother who's gay, and I don't mention it a lot because a lot of times it becomes like, well, I have a gay brother, so like that's
it's not your story.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like the black friend thing.
Right, exactly. And the night that this is gonna turn into a thing, but the night that Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away.
Hold on one second, Ian. Can you get closer to your mic? We're losing their sound. Yeah. Sorry. It's just because I want to hear this. I want to make sure. Yeah.
When the night that Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, justice in the United States.
You're still really quiet. I don't know.
One
why.
second. Oh, there you go. We're getting better there. Yeah. No. Again, only when you said yeah. Get it? Like.
Yeah, it just plummeted out of nowhere.
Like
right,
radio, weird. The trick was like
now it's
as you're about to make out with the mic. Yeah.
We're good here?
Yeah, that's much better. Perfect.
Okay. I'll move up even closer. Yeah. So the night that Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, my brother called me and just said, me and my boyfriend were getting married. We can't wait anymore. And it was just sort of like a moment for me that just shows how like, their lives can just be changed in a moment just because, someone in power is not in the right spot. And it just, these nights are important in that sense because like, my brother doesn't like hockey, but he likes his hobbies to include him. He likes his hobbies to be something that he can go and do and not think about all that stuff that's happening. Like hockey fans they deserve to be able to go to these games and feel like, first and foremost that they're safe there, which isn't always the case. But also that like the people that they're cheering for, respect them and are accepting of, the people that they are. So, I mean, it means a lot to see this. And just from like a Canadian's perspective, right? Like this idea, it's just a hockey team. Why does it matter that they do this? If your belief is that the Canadians are just one of 32 NHL teams, I think you've lost the plot. Like it's a cultural institution.
Stay close to your mic. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, it matters that they're doing this sort of thing, right? Like, so I think that, from the NHL as a whole needs to work on how their messaging, not so much the teams themselves, but like how the NHL is. Like Gary Bettman, what he said like this last week or so was awful. Like he just doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
He's a lawyer.
Yeah, he just lawyer speak, and I'd rather him not speak. So it's an important night for me just because like I like to, I want people to feel involved. I thought Marty St. Louis said some really great things today. Mm-hmm. I thought all the players did it. I don't want to focus on the guys who aren't participating because I think that detracts from a lot of this, right? Like I'm not even going to name them by name because it's not worth it. But like,
and it's tough to ignore at the same time, right? That's the other part. Like,
absolutely. It's the elephant in the room. Like it's impossible. But I think all things considered, like the Canadians are taking these events seriously, which matters.
They absolutely are now. They used to not. I'll tell you, but I'm so proud that they are now.
Yeah. And I'll just restate my thoughts on the situation tonight. I think the Flyers were the ones who set the standard, and it's a mistake. Like it sucks. It's unfortunate, but if you don't take part in a team event, you shouldn't play that game. Right. It doesn't mean that your standing with the organization needs to like fall apart, but it's just like anything else, right? Like Joe Drouin, he got scratched essentially, sat on the bench
120 seconds late to a meeting.
Yeah, 120 seconds late to a meeting, and that was his mistake for sure. And even if somebody has legitimate reasons, their fear for their family, whatever, you just tell them, okay, that's fine. We're going to further remove you from this night.
Mhm.
You'll be back in the next game.
Mhm.
Don't worry.
Mhm.
You don't have to worry about it. But we're not going to let you be part of it because it's a distraction.
It's like anything else. You know, if you don't participate in the team event,
You're not like, it's just one game. It's not going to hurt anybody. To sit out one game.
Also, just on a statistical point, Sean Farrell, like, you actually have a pretty darn good hockey excuse.
Yeah.
I don't want to like say that you need a hockey excuse, but Sean Farrell, it was right
There was
there.
but there was also when
Sorry,
they're in that
we
Gurianov
pumped you up.
hasn't
Hold on.
played.
We brought your audio way up, so we're hold on. Yeah,
Now your mic's working.
yeah. Try again,
great.
Ian, real quick.
Yeah.
1 2 1
No.
2.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
Okay, and not only that, like Gurianov has been enough of a hockey reason. Like, but tonight he was pretty good, but the games leading into this one, he was invisible. You know, like there was a reason there to not play him. And I know people go like, oh well, you know, you can't bench somebody because of the country they're from, and that's not what they would be doing. Because if that was the case, every Russian that's been benched over the last year would have a case, right? Like that's not how this works. So, you know, Guryanov's situation is sticky. The Canadiens could have just done a better job handling this, just as everybody could. If you don't participate in warm-up, honestly, you're kind of putting yourself at risk, right? Warm-up, you're supposed to go out there and get ready to play the game. It's part of your routine. Hockey players are creatures of habit until suddenly they don't want to wear a jersey. Like it's fascinating how we've kind of just allowed that to be part of these nights now, which is frustrating.
Yeah. And I think that there is something to be said for like whether the fear is rational or not for Russian players. Like if you look at the actual Russian law, it's just a small fine, but like I understand where there could be paranoia. Putin is a psychopath. And I will say also that like based on what the players were saying yesterday and what they said today before the game, it seems like Guryanov was actually supportive.
Right.
But also didn't want to
Fearful.
be there. Yeah.
The one thing that I will say is I'm so proud of hearing stuff from Jonathan Drouin, for example.
Yeah.
He is, and you know, when we talk about leaders on the ice, to me, a leader goes beyond that, right? Because as we talk, like Ian said, if you think the Montreal Canadiens are just another team, it's not true. Like I learned that when I work with them, some stuff I would say would reverberate like really far and be like, oh, like at one point when we did the shoes for the missing Indigenous youth, you know, obviously the genocide that happened in Canada, it went to the Parliament. Okay, like that's when we realized that it reverberated so far. But I will say this: I'm so proud of seeing Jonathan Drouin stand up for it. And I grew up in an era where the word trans didn't exist. It meant trans fats. Like it literally was not spoken of.
Yeah.
I used gay slurs. I'll admit it until right about university. And this, again, in the 90s, not an excuse. I was just ignorant. I didn't know that. So one of the great things about these nights, especially for old farts like me, is learning. And it's key. I've been so lucky that I can just sit back and absorb. But I've learned so much. And it's through guys like Jonathan Drouin, who's younger than me. Some of our colleagues, I was just mentioning in chat, I'm learning from them. And I'm so happy they're willing to essentially be my Wikipedia, which is not their role. It's like, it's almost insulting. I'll be like, hey, like I'll look, but I'm so happy with the next generation is willing to tolerate how ignorant I am about it, as long as I'm willing to learn. To me, like it warms my heart that we're so lucky that we have another generation. And guys like Jordan Harris are going to end up being leaders, not just on the ice, but in the world. And the Montreal Canadiens are lucky to have people like Jordan Harris on their team and guys like Jonathan Drouin that are willing to speak up. So I understand there's been a lot of negative in the last while, and it's so hard to not talk about it because we knew this was coming with Provorov. We knew this was going to create a domino effect. But I will say this, and people in the community might sigh and roll their eyes, and they're right to do it. But from where we came from to where we are now, we've done like the evolution just in hockey, and there's so much work left to done, has been huge, like huge. Social matters were not spoken of. So as frustrating as it is, and I understand it's frustrating, especially in the community, because these are things that affect your life from day to day. I will say this, man, the changes have been huge, and they're gonna get better. Like we're gonna continue to improve. Well, and that to me is encouraging.
That is something that we have to like continue to focus on, because I think you can't blame anyone in the community, the LGBT
for being upset. Absolutely,
for being upset or feeling scared
right
now. Especially
they're being told it's a choice.
Yeah, I know, but like we also do have to realize that like the bigots that are pushing a lot of this stuff, the people who are pushing back in hockey, like I'm sorry for all of your pain and anguish that you grew up with, that you feel this way. The fact is, you who feel that way, the bigots, you're dying. you talk to kids these days, like Gen Z and younger.
Yeah.
That's
they
why I'm
are,
so happy. I'm
like,
so encouraged. Yeah.
they are totally inclusive. It's a totally different world. Like, you think millennials are annoying? Boomers?
Dude.
Like, just wait. It's gonna be
I've got a
so
little
much
sister
more
in college.
inclusive.
The Zoomers are annoying, but they're like I'm very proud of that generation. It's really cool seeing, kids like my sister come up in a world that they're trying to make better. I think that's ultimately what all of this is, right? That, like, it's not the observation of a world that is perfect, but the idea that it ought to be. Like, that's Pride nights are, the statement "hockey is for everyone" kind of gets thrown around as like this catch-all.
Bullshit.
It's one of those words that they tried to make mean everything, and in turn it means nothing. It's but as an ideal, it ought to be for everybody. There's nothing about hockey that should be pushing people to the outsides. So it was a good night. It was nice to see, Yoel Armia taped his stick all the way down with pride tape during warm-ups.
Armia did it for the gays there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he potted 3. So, it's good. I hope that teams are not scared off from doing this stuff in the future. Hockey's very conservative, not only politically, but generally in their actions and doing things. So this year was the first year ever where they had one in every city. I'd be shocked if it happened again next year where every city had one, just because of like the stuff that happened. But I hope one of those cities isn't Montreal. I hope they continue to, be on the cutting edge of these things.
Yeah, and I think Montreal made a statement today that they were not going to be dropping this. Like,
good.
I'll say this: I know who's in charge of it. And I'm incredibly proud, and I'm not worried not one little bit, because it's someone who has taught me a lot, actually, while I worked with the Montreal Canadiens. So that I'm not worried about that at all. And it's so important. When a lot of people don't understand how important it is, Montreal Canadiens are the largest Franco organization in North America. Like, their influence goes so far and wide. And just from nights where we'd bring in like we brought in for I think it was Pride Night last year. We brought in a trans athlete, and he was talking about his hockey team, and we had like 50 people come and say, like, there's sports for us, and we're like, oh my god, yeah, absolutely, here we go. And it was really annoying because it was essentially me Wikipediaing him, like, how is it to be like this? And I felt so terrible, but those are the steps we need to take. And as much as it sucks to see some outliers here and there, man, the work being done is so important, and it's good. It's like overall really good, but I do not blame people when they get frustrated that their marginalized community continues to be marginalized. That's a fair reaction.
it is. It's like you have to embrace it, right, and help, but also focus on, like, we are headed overall, I think, in the proper direction. It's just I feel like this whole last half decade has been like the desperate last gasp of the worst people in the friggin' world. And unfortunately, it's led to the rise of like fascism, unfortunately, in a lot of areas, but hopefully we can get through it quickly without a world war.
Absolutely.
And then get back to the good shit. And
Absolutely. And trans rights are human rights.
100%. And it's not a choice. Because frankly,
fuck you, Eric Stahl.
it's
being Christian's a choice.
that's
Wearing the jersey was a choice too. A choice that he made in the past and then mysteriously forgot about and then just straight up lied about.
and then was shown video and was like, that's not me.
No, that's not me.
On the
Couldn't be
8th
me.
day, he realized he was a fucking liar.
Yeah, that's actually the 5th Stahl brother. That's not me.
Yeah. No brings up a good point. Not all hockey's bigoted, just men's hockey. I mean,
no, that's not true. Absolutely not. I worked in women's hockey, and there's a clear divide right there. That is the divide, the political divide in the United States is right there, and it was there in the CWHL, and it was there in the no. I know that I also thought like that. I was a little, and I'm not saying, but I was a little ignorant about it. Absolutely not true. There is a huge divide in women's hockey as well. Yeah.
Google digit.
Trizak says that Eric Stahl used the Shaggy defense. Wasn't me.
Yeah.
I appreciate the reference.
Yeah,
That
right?
brings me back to high school. All right, should we put a bow on this?
Yeah, absolutely. But what we do want to make sure, we talk about these things, and again, we're 3 straight white males, so we appreciate everyone being patient with us learning. We're also learning in this point, so we want to do as much as we can to represent you as well. So thank you for being there with us and educating us and supporting us and taking it easy when sometimes an old fogey like me doesn't quite understand like that. It's super important. You're making the sport better, and because of that, you're making the world better. So thank you very much.
And for Pride Night, you know what? Special shout out to Robert. Robert makes everything run for Game Over. I don't think people
He's
realize
my hero.
how much Robert does behind the scenes. He is the MVP of this entire brand.
Yeah.
You know, he's the jack of all trades. He does everything for us. And Robert is the absolute best. Love him to death.
Big time.
Let's
I
end
can't
it
believe
on that.
I can't believe Robert and I have the same amount of hours in a day. Like it's insane what Robert is able to do. Like just I'm always in complete awe of the stuff that he's been able to put forward with you guys. It's really cool.
Robert is kick-ass, and I'd just like to say one last time, trans rights are human rights.
All right, let's end it there.
Merci tout le monde.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sports